Imagine walking into a restaurant and paying $30 for a plate of pasta that costs $5 to make. Now imagine that $15 of your bill goes straight to organized crime. According to PwC's 2024 Global Economic Crime Survey, this reality isn't just possible, it's happening across major industries that touch your daily life. From the concrete in your office building to the garbage collected outside your home, mob money has infiltrated legitimate business in ways most people never see. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how organized crime uses major corporations as their personal ATMs, and why even the smartest executives often can't or won't stop it. The criminal cash machine: how illegal activities fund legitimate businesses. How does a street-level drug dealer transform into a corporate executive? The answer lies in the money trail that most people never see. Behind every successful criminal enterprise is a sophisticated financial operation that rivals Wall Street in its complexity and ingenuity. The criminal underworld operates on cash, mountains of it. Organized crime syndicates generate staggering revenue streams through activities like drug trafficking, extortion, and loan sharking. For the American Mafia in their heyday, these illicit operations funneled billions of dollars into their coffers. But this success creates a paradox. Having too much cash becomes a liability rather than an asset. Think of dirty money as radioactive. It glows with suspicion. A mobster can't simply walk into a Ferrari dealership with a duffel bag of cash without raising red flags. Law enforcement agencies are specifically trained to detect unexplained wealth, making it impossible for criminals to openly enjoy their profits without attracting unwanted attention. This creates an urgent need to transform dirty money into clean assets that can be used without suspicion. The American Mafia pioneered many of these financial techniques during their golden era. Their income from gambling operations, protection rackets, and labor union infiltration generated cash flows that would make some Fortune 500 companies envious. But unlike legitimate businesses, they couldn't simply deposit these funds in a bank account or report them on tax returns. This necessitated elaborate schemes to disguise the origins of their wealth, laying the groundwork for modern money laundering techniques. Drug cartels face even more extreme challenges in managing their finances. Imagine the logistical nightmare of handling millions in cash that can't be deposited in banks. These organizations often resort to bulk cash smuggling, physically moving currency across borders in hidden compartments of vehicles or cargo shipments. The risks are enormous. A single seizure can result in catastrophic financial losses. Beyond the immediate monetary impact, these intercepted shipments create paper trails that law enforcement can follow to uncover broader criminal networks. To minimize these risks, criminal organizations employ a technique known as structuring, breaking large sums into smaller transactions below reporting thresholds. This creates a spider web of financial activity that's difficult for authorities to track, though it requires extensive coordination and trusted associates to execute effectively. The most vulnerable moment in money laundering occurs during placement, the initial introduction of dirty cash into legitimate financial channels. This critical phase requires creativity and caution. Enter the front business, establishments that provide plausible cover for large cash deposits. Laundromats, car washes, and restaurants are particularly effective because they naturally generate high volumes of cash transactions, making it difficult to distinguish legitimate revenue from illicit funds. A pizza parlor might report selling thousands more pizzas than it actually does, allowing criminal operators to mix drug money with genuine sales. Who's counting how many pepperoni pies actually leave the kitchen? These cash-intensive businesses create the perfect smokescreen for the first step in cleaning dirty money. What starts as a humble front operation often becomes a stepping stone to larger infiltration. A successful laundromat might generate enough legitimized capital to purchase a small construction company, which then bids on larger projects, gradually expanding criminal influence into more profitable industries. Behind these operations are sophisticated financial manipulation techniques. Invoice fraud represents one powerful tool. Creating fake bills for goods or services that were never provided allows criminals to justify large transfers of money. A mobster-controlled construction company might pay a shell corporation for non-existent consulting services, effectively moving money while creating a paper trail that appears legitimate. Offshore banking provides another layer of protection. By establishing accounts in jurisdictions with strict secrecy laws, criminal organizations can store and transfer funds anonymously, creating distance between themselves and their money. These international financial networks allow crime bosses to access their wealth globally while making it nearly impossible for investigators to follow the money trail. 3. Corporate infiltration, from street corners to boardrooms. Those offshore accounts aren't just the final destination for criminal cash. They're merely staging grounds for organized crime's true ambition, legitimate power. Behind the foundations of some of America's most essential industries lies a deliberate pattern of infiltration that transforms street operators into corporate power brokers with alarming precision. This transformation involves a critical second stage of money laundering, known as layering, where criminal organizations create complex webs of transactions to distance dirty money from its illicit origins. But sophisticated crime syndicates recognize that merely cleaning money wasn't enough. Why remain outsiders to legitimate business when they could become the business itself? The industries targeted by organized crime aren't selected randomly. According to the PwC Global Economic Crime Survey 2024, procurement fraud remains a widespread concern, with 55% of respondents identifying it as a significant issue in their countries. This vulnerability creates perfect conditions for criminal infiltration, particularly in sectors with complex supply chains and procurement processes. Construction, waste management, and food distribution have historically served as prime targets for mob infiltration. These cash-intensive industries offer multiple avenues for corruption through their complex networks of suppliers, contractors, and regulatory oversight. The practical nature of these businesses, everyone needs buildings constructed, garbage collected, and food delivered, ensures steady demand regardless of economic conditions. The American Mafia's takeover of New York's concrete industry reveals this strategy in action. By establishing what became known as the Concrete Club, mob families effectively controlled who could pour concrete on major Manhattan construction projects. This cartel arrangement allowed them to artificially inflate prices, rig bids, and even substitute substandard materials while maintaining a facade of legitimate competition. The result, massive projects like skyscrapers and infrastructure developments became unwitting contributors to organized crime's coffers. To shield their involvement from authorities, criminal organizations create labyrinthine ownership structures. Shell companies registered in regulatory-light jurisdictions obscure the true beneficiaries of business operations. A single mob-controlled construction company might exist within 5 or 6 layers of holding companies, making ownership nearly impossible to trace. The PwC survey indicates companies are increasingly aware of these risks, with 59% completing enterprise-wide fraud risk assessments in the last year. Yet many still remain vulnerable. Control of these businesses isn't always achieved through outright purchase. Crime syndicates often begin with strategic investments or loans to struggling legitimate operations. These financial lifelines come with strings attached, gradually converting into controlling interests through a combination of legal maneuvering and not-so-subtle coercion. A restaurant owner who accepts a loan from a connected individual might find himself merely a figurehead in his own establishment within months. Once established within an industry, criminal enterprises manipulate supply chains with ruthless efficiency. By controlling key components or services, they create artificial shortages or establish regional monopolies. A mob-controlled concrete supplier might be the only source available for certain projects, forcing legitimate builders to pay inflated prices or face construction delays. These tactics generate massive profits while appearing to operate within normal market dynamics. This strategic industry infiltration represents the most sophisticated evolution of transforming illegal drug money into legitimate business profits. The criminal organization no longer merely cleans its money, it creates entirely new revenue streams from ostensibly legitimate operations. The PwC survey further highlights how vulnerable these systems remain, with 42% of companies either lacking third-party risk management programs entirely or failing to implement risk scoring for their business partners. The blending of criminal and corporate worlds creates a particularly challenging scenario for law enforcement. When organized crime controls legitimate businesses that employ workers, pay taxes, and participate in industry associations, the line between illegal enterprise and conventional business becomes increasingly blurred. Prosecuting these operations risks economic disruption and job losses in communities dependent on these industries. The family business, maintaining criminal control across generations. When law enforcement finally captures a notorious crime boss, they often discover a disturbing reality. The businesses that criminal controlled continue operating without missing a beat. What these agencies fail to understand is that organized crime has mastered something few legitimate companies achieve: perfect succession planning that ensures criminal enterprises outlive their founders. This represents the final stage of money laundering: integration. At this point, illicit wealth has been so thoroughly washed that it returns to the organization bearing all the hallmarks of legitimate business success, becoming virtually indistinguishable from honest enterprise. Criminal dynasties face a fundamental challenge that legitimate businesses don't: how to transfer control of both legal and illegal operations while keeping law enforcement at bay. This requires extraordinarily sophisticated planning that would impress even the most cunning Wall Street estate planners. The stakes couldn't be higher. A single misstep can mean forfeiture of generations of accumulated wealth or lengthy prison sentences. Family is the cornerstone of this system. Crime groups strategically position relatives throughout their legitimate business holdings, creating organizational charts that mirror conventional family businesses. The son who attended business school becomes the CEO of the waste management company. The nephew with a law degree handles contracts and negotiations. The trusted cousin oversees financial operations. This structure ensures the family maintains direct control over decision-making and cash flow, while presenting a legitimate face to regulators and business partners. What truly cements these operations, however, is the cultivation of relationships with legitimate professionals. Every successful crime family has its constellation of lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors who provide critical services while maintaining plausible deniability about their clients' activities. These professional enablers design complex financial structures, facilitate transactions, and provide the veneer of legitimacy that shields criminal enterprises from scrutiny. Their expertise becomes indispensable as organizations grow more sophisticated, helping to navigate regulatory hurdles that would otherwise expose illegal operations. Public perception management forms another critical component of this multi-generational strategy. Mob-controlled businesses often become pillars of their communities, making substantial charitable donations, sponsoring local sports teams, and contributing to political campaigns. The construction company owned by a crime family might build a new wing for the local hospital. Their waste management firm might sponsor environmental initiatives. These activities aren't merely for show. They create powerful allies in the community who become unwitting defenders of the organization's legitimacy. Behind the scenes, these families employ inheritance planning techniques worthy of billionaire dynasties. Complex networks of trusts, holding companies, and carefully structured estates ensure that assets transfer cleanly between generations without triggering scrutiny. These legal instruments are designed with a singular purpose: to shield wealth from both taxation and investigation, while ensuring the family retains control. A properly structured trust can own a business for generations, with family members serving as trustees or beneficiaries without having their names appear on any public ownership documents. The digital revolution has provided new tools for these criminal enterprises to further obscure their operations. Today's organized crime groups have embraced cryptocurrency, online banking platforms, and digital payment systems that allow them to move money across borders with unprecedented speed and anonymity. These technologies have created new challenges for law enforcement, who must now track transactions through a labyrinth of digital wallets and exchanges rather than following physical cash. The result of these sophisticated structures is a criminal enterprise that becomes progressively more legitimate with each passing generation. The grandson of a mob boss might graduate from an elite business school, speaking the language of corporate finance fluently while managing assets that originated in his grandfather's loan sharking operation. To his business partners, regulators, and the public, he appears indistinguishable from any other successful entrepreneur. The criminal origins of the family fortune become increasingly difficult to detect, much less prove in court. What we've uncovered is perhaps more disturbing than any movie portrayal of organized crime. The boundary between criminal enterprise and legitimate business has effectively dissolved in certain sectors. Through sophisticated integration techniques, criminal syndicates don't merely exist alongside legitimate commerce. They've become indistinguishable from it. These organizations operate with such finesse that their illegal origins become invisible, operating within the very framework designed to prevent their existence. They've mastered the art of appearing legitimate while maintaining the financial structures that enable criminal profits to flow undetected. The most alarming realization isn't just how organized crime has infiltrated legitimate business, but how seamlessly they've blended into our everyday commercial landscape.